I'm Jman.
And I'm Johnny
And
Love.
we are here for part 3 of the Superhero Museum at the Hall of Heroes.
Today is going to be very cool. We are going through the Golden Age and Silver Age of comics.
We've got some awesome books to show you.
You're going to cry.
Yeah,
you are going to cry.
You're not going to know what to do with yourselves. And speaking of that, our gracious host, I believe, is about ready to make an appearance.
Always.
So here we go.
I'm Alan Stewart. Welcome back to the Hall of Heroes Superhero Museum, comic book fans.
There he is.
We are going to talk about the history of comic books today. And a lot of people, of course, I'm kind of wearing a hint today of who is the first superhero in comic books, and it, of course, is Superman in Action Comics #1 from 1938. Unfortunately, we do not have a copy of Action Comics #1. That is still one of the books that we are working on acquiring. Very rare, very valuable book. It's very tough. In fact, there's only a handful of copies that exist, and if one would come up for auction, it's going to run between $300,000 and $500,000.
That's life.
Our single most expensive comic book here at the Hall of Heroes Superhero Museum is $50,000. So,
wow.
But we're working on a lot of grant money, things like that, to acquire such books like that. But what we do have, though, is we do have old Superman comic books from the 1940s, the World War II years.
Very cool.
Very cool books. In fact, that's what this section is. This section here is the Golden Age section of comic books. The Golden Age section starts with Superman in June of 1938, goes to about 1955. And in this segment, I'm going to talk about the whole history of the Golden Age, what happens going into the Silver Age, and what happens in between. Of course, here, these are all original Golden Age comic books that you see here.
I like the
Very,
submariner
very
back
cool
here.
books. Yes.
The submariner. Look
Yeah.
at Santa, dude. Santa and Superman
Yeah.
chilling. You don't see that too often.
That's right. Now, some of the other cool stuff that we have, most of these are all World War II era comic books. And what is really cool is some of the books here are World War II covers. It's very interesting. Some of which, right here, this Captain Marvel book that you see here, shows Captain Marvel selling and promoting war bond stamps to help promote the war effort. The Captain America right beside it shows Captain America fighting the Nazis. That's a 1943 issue.
The Gates!
Yes.
Guten Abend!
The Batman cover shows Batman and Robin doing a World War II war bond drive. Very cool. And then back here, the Captain Marvel back there, that is a new acquisition to the museum. We just got this in last week. Shows Captain Marvel getting a medal pinned on him by Uncle Sam with the U.S. troops in the background.
Which is a copyrighted character from DC, right? Uncle Sam himself,
Is
correct?
now.
Is now. Okay,
Now,
wasn't back
Fawcett
then.
Comics owned the rights to Uncle Sam during this time period.
Okay.
Okay. Now, also, Uncle Sam, a lot of people are familiar with this, the Uncle Sam recruiting
I
program.
want you.
That's right, exactly. A lot of people are not aware that Uncle Sam appeared in comic books. We actually have the rarest appearance of Uncle Sam in comic books. It's this book right here. This book is very rare. It shows Uncle Sam fighting the Japanese at Pearl Harbor. Now, I hope you folks are sitting down as you're listening to this, because you're going to get goosebumps when I tell you this. This comic book came out the month before Pearl Harbor actually happened.
Wow.
A lot of people are not aware of this comic book's existence. It's very rare, very valuable. We just acquired a copy of this after several years of searching about 2 months ago. So this is a new acquisition. So if you come to the museum, we're always getting new and old things. We're always getting new artifacts for the museum. And that's part of what we do. This is, the two #1 things we do here at the museum is use comic books and superheroes as education. That's a big thing we do here at the museum.
Modern day Greek gods, correct?
Yes,
I mean, that's-
absolutely. Ties in very strongly with mythology. The other thing we do is these are historical artifacts. We are the only organization in the world dedicated to using comic books and superheroes as an educational resource, also dedicated to preserving these historical artifacts. And we'll talk about a little more about that in some of our upcoming segments. But we also have not only the comic books from the World War II years, we also have the old toys. Right here, the old Superman dime bank and the Superman tank. Those are old tin toys from the 1940s. Very rare, very valuable.
Sweet.
The
No
Batman
rust.
box.
No rust.
No rust.
No
That's right.
rust.
We are very particular about what we have on display. The Batman box, that contains an 8mm film reel of one of the 1940s episodes that we talked about earlier when we were doing the Hollywood segment.
Gotcha.
We have an old Uncle Sam figure right there. And then we have the Captain Marvel dime bank and one of the Captain Marvel episodes in box and the Captain Marvel lightning car. So we have a lot of the old Golden Age toys and artifacts. And the important educational thing about this segment is that these comic books are so rare and so valuable, not only because they're old, they're 70 years old, paper doesn't age well, but because kids were encouraged to turn their comic books and these toys into the scrap metal drives during World War II. So that's why they're so rare. Because basically it was like if you take today's newspaper and said, hey, let me keep it for 70 years and it's going to be worth $300,000 or $500,000. You're like, no way. Don't believe it. So that's why these are so rare and so valuable, is because these were getting recycled. And that's the thing, scrap paper, scrap metal drives, that's what we know now as recycling. Comic books played a very important role in the beginnings of recycling. A lot of people don't know that. And this is some of our educational stuff that we do, is we tie these in about recycling educational programs and things like that with comic books and these old toys.
Well, not only that, didn't our military used to get comic books in their drops from base for their food and their needs?
Absolutely. Care packages.
Care packages.
Yes.
That's the word.
World War II troops, in fact, it wasn't kids that were the #1 readers of comic books during World War II. It was U.S. troops overseas. Because a typical care package to a U.S. troop would consist of tobacco, Hershey chocolate bars, and comic books. And usually Superman, Batman, Captain Marvel, and Captain America were usually the real big ones. And they played a very important role in the soldiers, keeping them around. Also, Wonder Woman was big, kind of made the soldiers remember, what they're fighting for, their mothers, their girlfriends, their wives back home.
Every soldier likes hot Greek women.
That's right, exactly, absolutely. And Wonder Woman's a hottie still today.
And
she was back then.
Something's wrong with you.
And Wonder Woman was big.
Yes, she was. That was just so important historically. In fact, it really drove home with me because I actually do at the Elkhart Memorial Day Parade. I dress up as Captain America every year for that. And the first year that I did that, as I marched in the parade, it wasn't kids running out in the parade route. It was 80-some-year-old men, U.S. World War II veterans coming out. They had to stop the parade route 3 different times so these elderly gentlemen could come up and shake my hand as Captain America or post their pictures. It was really cool and it really drove the point home to me. So I do that for the Veterans Association and the Boy Scouts every year now for the Memorial Day Parade. I dress up as Captain America. I also go to scout events for flag burning ceremonies, and I'll show up as Captain America for the kids because, the kids, it really shows them the importance of the flag burning ceremonies, how it needs to be respectful and things like that. If I show up as Captain America, they pay attention, they listen to what I'm telling them about the importance. So there's just a ton of educational things and historical things that I like to do with the museum. Very cool. So
I hope that they
cool.
touch base in some of the history of that in the upcoming movie.
It's going to be a period piece, so we'll be set in World War II. It's going to be his origin.
And I'm so excited about that. Captain America is one of my favorites.
The main villain will be the Red Skull.
Do they have him cast yet? Do they have Captain America
Not
cast
yet. Word is in October that they might come out with that, but the studio's going to release that whenever they want to.
Right.
I mean, they're going to make their own decision.
Yep.
A lot of websites like comicbookmovie.com have polls and stuff. MTV Splash Page, they have polls, which I'm sure affect their decision. But in the end, the studio is going to make the final decision.
Well, but a lot of those other websites too just don't have what comicbookmovie.com has.
Now, speaking of Captain America, here's a very nice print of Captain America #1, and it shows him punching out Hitler 9 months before Pearl Harbor. Before we were even in the war, we were fighting.
Guten Abend!
We were
Shut
fighting
him up.
Nazis in
Shut
the
Hitler
comics
up.
almost a year before. Now, a lot of folks, if you don't know why there is a golden age and a silver age of comic books, you've heard some of these terms, but there's something very important historically that happens in between. It's based on this book right here, Seduction of the Innocent. That is a first edition copy from 1954, a book produced by Dr. Frederick Wortham. He was a child psychologist who blamed the rise of juvenile delinquency on comic books.
But video game industry now. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
With the Matrix problem,
Now, keep in mind, during the mid-1950s, you had the McCarthy era, people were kind of paranoid and things like that. But the other thing, rock and roll is being blamed for the same thing at the same time period.
Sure.
So what happens is you have churches and schools doing comic book burnings and bannings. So you have 3 waves of destruction of these Golden Age books.
Right.
Age, recycling, and then this.
Craziness,
yes. That's why these books are so rare and so valuable, and we display these, which is very, very important.
I was slightly confused by that Seduction of the Innocent. I didn't know if that was going to be a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, it's a bad thing because comic books almost ceased to exist. We almost never had Spider-Man, Hulk, Fantastic Four, X-Men. None of these characters that we know and love now, the big movies are coming out. In fact, this went to congressional hearings that got so serious, and what happened is it came out of the congressional hearings was the comic books code.
Okay. Oh yeah, the authority.
That's right, and we're going to talk about that more in our next segment when we
Yeah.
go into the Silver Age of comic books and the beginnings of Marvel.
Gotcha. Comic book movie fans, that was part 3. We are coming back at you next week for part 4 for the Silver Age with comic book historian Alan Stewart here.
That's right.
So we will see you next time. Thanks guys for tuning in.